Hello and welcome to the Team Draft Super League. My name is Owen Turtenwald. I'm here with David Williams. We just watched Dave play a match against Reed Duke that went to 3 games with a pretty anticlimactic mana screw / mana flood combo. What did you think about the matchup, Dave?
I don't know. I mean, the matchup's weird. I feel like Blue Cartouche is the only way he can actually beat me. Like, he has a hard time getting through to do damage, so it's tough
Yeah.
if I don't draw Edifice. If I draw Edifice, I feel like I could just deck him like I did that other game. It's funny. I told Brian Hacker the turn I was attacked to 7. I said, "Oh, here comes the plains." I would bet my life on it. The turn when it doesn't matter, and there it was. I mean, it turns out it wouldn't have mattered for a few turns. I had to get going a lot earlier, but he had the kind of draw where if I drew a plains, I could have punished. He didn't have much going on, but it happens. It happens. I kept a hand with no plains, so I think if I had no swamps, I'm at a mulligan because I don't have very many swamps, but I have a lot of plains in my deck. So
The match actually looked kind of interesting from a deck building perspective. Like, he has Drakehaven, which is this awesome card, unless you have Forsake the Worldly, and Edifice is really problematic for him, but he also has this violent impact.
we
that,
both
like,
have a random
could,
cycling answer.
maybe work out, and you're the aggro and he's trying to block, and he just needs to either get Drakehaven with flyers or Cryptic Serpent plus Cartouche of Knowledge for flyers. But it seemed like in general you were probably a favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like slightly though, not a huge favorite.
That
It was weird. It was weird trying to play around everything in game 2. Like, there was the turn where I thought forever because it's like I could have Alpha Strike, and kept the Lord and give him Menace, and I had the Oketra's name. But if he has like Winds of Rebuke, which it looks like he sideboarded out, or if he had Final Reward, like there was so many variables and different ways to block that ultimately I felt I have 18 creatures in my deck. I'm just going to sit back and wait till I draw more creatures and just out creature him because how's he going to beat me? His Cartouche was in the yard, I think. I had Edifice. So, there was just it was on play, but I had Edifice. So, no way he was actually get through. So, I didn't go for it. But
yeah, no, it was super close, interesting game. A lot of weird combats where you're trying to play around a turn. He tries to play around Innocatcher's name, but you had impeccable timing. And
yeah, it was funny because he kind of bluffed me the turn before. He ended up putting his 4/4 on a 1/1, and he had a blue open, and I could have impeccable timing the horror of that turn. But I thought the blue open meant he had the compelling argument in hand, and if he does that in response, then he just blows me out. So I just let my warrior token die, but then it turned out the way he blocked later on, it was obvious he didn't have the compelling argument in his hand, but he was playing around Oketra's name, not around impeccable timing. If I knew that, I would have been able to cast. It was just really awkward with so many things to play around in his deck. I mean, it made it tough.
yeah, also okay, well, it sounds like the match is ready to be played, so we're gonna head on down to that. Okay, so Reed won the die roll. It seems as if both players are definitely going to keep.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to see what Reed's hands look like from this point of view. It felt like he had everything, but if I'm up against this hand, I'm like, oh, great, Skirmisher and Crab, I can attack.
Paul has a really important card in his hand, Trial of Zeal.
Yeah, he has 6 cartouches.
6 cartouches is crazy. 3 red, 3 black. I remember I had a moment when I played against him. He played the red trial. I go, oh, anything but that.
Yeah, he was so tempted to find it. He wanted to play the blue trial main deck.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was worth junking up his deck to play an island and a random card draw spell in his aggressive beatdown deck. But
he sideboarded into it against me, and it was really strong.
Yeah, maybe it is right. It just feels like you just want to be cast. You don't want to get mana screwed. Right now he can't even find a swamp. Imagine if he just draws island right now. It's well, I guess he has Trial of Zeal and Thresher Lizard, but you know what I mean. You really just want to draw your colors in his deck so you can be efficient and not give them all the time in the world.
No doubt.
This comes up all the time and it bugs me. I wish Thresher Lizard was like a 3/2 or 2/2 that got +2/+2 or something, because I always end up with these 2 guys in play and you can't do anything about it.
I actually, at the Pro Tour, I drafted a mono red deck, and I had those 2 guys out, and I had a Manticore of the Gauntlet, so I put a counter on the Thresher Lizard, and then I would give it unblockable and draw above hand size and get down, and it was just a balancing act of making that into a combo somehow.
Yes, yes, I love it.
Yeah, that was cool.
So
Wow,
interesting.
beat down.
Yeah, if you put the cartouche on the crab, it would be Trial of Zeal proof. And as it is now, this guy's just going to get shot down, which is fine. It comes back, but he loses his threat.
The cartouche seems like an important card that stops Reed from getting decked all of the games that I've seen.
Yeah. It's funny how the cartouches are kind of like quietly just the best cards in the set.
Yeah, the blue one is like crazy. It's so good. Your team has done a horrible job of drawing equal number of lands in both colors.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I mean, there's probably some variance to it, but I feel like it's like you run 16 a lot in this format, and you run 8-8 a lot. Like Paul's 8-8, I was 8-8, and like in the Pro Tour, both my decks are 8-8. And I had so many games where I only draw one color of mana, and it happened at the Grand Prix last weekend, or the Vegas one. I ran 8-8 a lot, and I had one color of mana. So like a real hard part of like going down. Like a lot of people say run 15 lands in some of these decks, but like you don't have enough colored sources when you run 15 land. Like sure, your deck might flood with more than 15 land, but you just don't have enough of your secondary color to consistently draw it.
It's a nice balancing act of hoping that you get enough lands to have a good hand and not drawing too many lands because they have almost no value.
Yeah, I mean, here it is again. It looks just like our last game. The fifth mountain does not really much.
Reed's deck is not particularly impressive at punishing draws like that, but I will say that Paul should be tipped off to the fact that Reed has something in his hand because he had 5 available mana and did not embalm Top-Crop Skirmisher. So being an astute player like Paul, I'm sure he pulled up the deck list and looked at instants with converted mana costs 4 or less, or actually 2 or more, because if it was 1, it would come out.
We are cursed, man. The sixth mountain. This is wonderful. I love the combo of the Painful Truce and the Thresher Lizard. That's just fantastic too.
This is really conservative by Reed. You would think that he would be able to put the Drakehaven into play and leave up Essence Scatter. Taking down Final Reward doesn't look like it matters very much, but it's all about that Trial of Zeal. He knows that Paul probably needs a black mana, and if Paul has all black cards in his hand, they might as well be black cartouches, which he just wants to respond to. So given that he's in a favorable position, he wants to play conservative. For
sure. That's the way to stop the trial recursion. And the Drakehaven in play doesn't really do anything right now. He has no cyclers. And if he draws one, he can play it the same turn and then cycle.
Yep, he's got time.
The thing is, with deck list and Paul being very astute, knowing how much removal Reed has, I doubt he did. And there's no need to play the cartouche right now. I think he's probably just going to develop his board with creatures.
Yep, I'm almost certain that that's what's going to happen.
He loves getting in there with those Hemka Sentinels.
Man, Reed gets mean with these Hekma Sentinels. He's always losing, but just turn 11, he finds his window where he can get in where he fits in. 2 damage, bang.
So
I love it.
He left with the Final Reward, which Paul's pretty good. I think at this point he's got to know that Reed has the Final Reward up. The interesting part is if he slow rolls a swamp and plays like Bone Picker or Minotaur, and then Reed Essence Scatters, and he plays a second swamp in the cartouches, he actually has the mana. He has 9 mana to be able to do that, to go Minotaur, Cartouche, Trial.
Would be an excellent play.
What would be even more crazy if Reed just does an Essence Scatter. Oh, and Paul's going to go for it, which I think is a clear mistake. Although putting it on the Pathmaker initiative is nice, because now you just have to waste Essence Final Reward on a creature such as,
It's not the end of the world.
No, and he also can just play Swamp and play his Cartouche now on his Thresher Lizard, and still cast the Trial of Zeal. So not necessarily a mistake, but I might have liked seeing baited out with a creature first.
Additionally, it means that he can use Trial of Zeal on Hekma Sentinels when Reed's tapped out, so that a cycling card won't save it. Against those 2 creatures and open mana, it looks like Trial of Zeal is going to have pretty low utility.
And he got rid of the Final Reward for a Pathmaker initiate. So actually, Paul's play might have just been better.
He's got 4 power against an 0-4 additionally. Like this all worked out very well for Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was wrong. I think I would rather have this board than have a Cursed Minotaur Essence Scattered in my graveyard. The Final Reward is gone now.
Yep.
And Essence Scatter's riding in his hand. Well, sure, you might Essence Scatter something later, but you got a 4/3 lifelinker that's going to get bigger.
Playing against a deck like Reed's, when you can see his deck list, you sort of have to have like a checklist of the important cards, and you go like, okay, check Final Reward. That's no longer available for the rest of the game.
I had it open next to me, and every time I was like, okay, that's gone. That I literally had the checklist going, and at the end of the game, I'm like, okay, what's left?
Yep. So as far as instant speed removal goes against those 6 cartouches, he knows that it's final reward, electrify, deem worthy. I don't really know the rest of Reed's list, but I know that once those slowly get eliminated from, being in circulation, then Paul's going to play a lot different.
Yeah, so I don't know what the right play for Paul is here. I mean, he can play 3 cards. He can't really get 3 cards in play because he's only got 2 swamps. So he can't get his Thresher Lizard up to a 5 power to get through the Cryptic Serpent. So I think he's just got to start playing creatures.
I would say the Bone Picker is the most important.
Right, so that's the one you want to leave for the end.
Yep. Cursed Minotaur is good because if it gets Essence Scattered, then you can play Bone Picker. But since that's not the case, you want the Doom Descender down before the Baleful Hamlet. So I like Paul sequencing best. He went second best creature first, and then the worst card, and then now third, and then one. So he went in the order that it would be best to play around his opponent's card.
Now, 2 great cards for Reed here.
This is developing nicely.
Yeah, I mean, Naga Oracle's going to find him what he needs to get some Drakes going, or even just find more removal, electrify to deal with the Thresher Lizard even before it gets out of hand, before he gets his card out.
So Paul's deck with the Trial, he's going to have a lot of ways to kill creatures, but the Drakehaven is repeatable card advantage, so Reed just all he needs to do is hit something like a Pull from Tomorrow or like 2-3 cycling cards in a row, and I could see the game ending pretty quick.
For sure. And now the Bone Picker's not nearly as good against a Drake.
Nope, not at all. Aggressive.
Yeah, nasty attack from Reed. Reed likes to bring it.
I'm really hoping that my team wins without me. I already played 2 matches and lost them both, and it's possible for us to win the draft before it gets back to me. So if I can just show up and lose, and then we still win, that would be the most enjoyable outcome for me.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask this man here. We had mini drafts where he was my teammate, and I didn't get any wins back in the 90s and got to collect. And he would always say I owed like a commission, like when I collected my payment, like, yo, where's our commission?
I said something like that earlier. I go, Hugh, you guys might just win without me. He goes, wouldn't be the first time.
I played a team Grand Prix that we won. Me and Chris Benefel and Dan Clegg, we won it in Yokohama, Japan. And Dan Clegg won 0 matches. And me and Chris Benefel won every match of the weekend and won the Grand Prix.
Insane.
Pretty incredible. And then me, Mike Long, and Bob Maher played one of the first ones, and we made the top 4, and Mike Long never won a match. And we were like 15-0, me and Bob. Wow. But that was before anybody really understood Team Limited. It was so easy back then.
You get a couple of rounds nowadays that are like that, but not many.
Yeah, I mean, day 1's a lot easier than day 2. It's kind of 2 different tournaments. So Reed with the Essence Scatter still up. Everything made it out into play because none of it really mattered.
Yep.
Now he gets to cycle the broken lands and block, which is kind of broken.
Do we know what important creatures Paul has in his deck? I know there's at least a Gravedigger. Is there anything that's like, wow, I need to Essence Scatter that?
Nothing I remember other than like Gravedigger. Let's see. I'm looking at the list right now. There's a Desert Ceradon, which is kind of big on this board. But no, not really. Not at all.
Pretty severe flood here for Paul. Drawing 11 lands and looks like 10 or 11 spells. It's not insurmountably bad, but it's bad enough that against a good draw like Reed has, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, this is going to be gross with the Splendid Agony here.
There is a Supernatural Stamina in Paul's deck. I'm curious to see if Reed tries to play around that. I guess
actually, it turns out
he can't really.
They can't win without you because they're not playing 2 at once. After this match is you versus me.
Oh, really? And then I misunderstood the order.
Wait, we've already played.
Yeah, so you beat me bad.
It's me versus Huey, so you are last. Excuse me.
Yeah. So Reed is up a game.
Yeah, that was a dirty beating. So it looks like Pathmaker Initiate came right out immediately for Paul.
Yeah, the first thing he did was take that out just because of Ancient Crab and Dune Beetle. Is he nervous about just one? Because they still have some utility against giving his other creatures unblockable. And creatures are important anyways because of all his cartouches.
I think also with Splendid Agony, maybe he's just like doesn't want to have too many 1 toughness guys because the Nefprop Entangler came out also.
Yeah, Splendid Agony and Sweltering Sun seem to be cards that he's nervous about.
Oh, wow. So he's bringing in Floodwaters and the Trial and Pyramid of the Pantheon. I guess being on the Pantheon has really got into his deck building, but I guess he wants to, he figures he can cycle, and bouncing 2 blockers is pretty huge. Finding that Trial.
I think the Pyramid is just decent fixing for his deck, and I also think that the Trial of Knowledge is a slam dunk in this matchup. Like, so many of cards are slow and bad that turning a Cartouche of Zeal into draw 3 and discard 1 is huge gain.
Yeah, I like it. I like his. I mean, he took out the liabilities, the guys that get blanked by all the creatures with big butts in Reed's deck.
I wouldn't mind seeing a River Serpent from Paul, because
I was just thinking that. It seems like it mashes everything in play.
A 5/5 is a good spot to be in against 1/4s. Reed does not seem like he is confident in how he should sideboard.
Yeah, it's tough when you have it all.
There's a lot of different ways that you could be concerned about the matchup. It's like, oh, do I want to try to fight his creatures and the cartouches, or do I want to do a card advantage battle? Or
the only problem
it's not obvious.
Paul's sideboard is he's now down to 10 creatures, so he's also like Matt, 10 creatures with 6 cartouches, not 2.
That is absolutely something that should be of concern.
Especially when you're going to have removal pointed at. With so much removal that Reed has, I could theoretically see him just never having guys to put cartouches on.
Would you ever just move to that Skilled Behemoth? You can get double green off the Pyramid. Reed essentially can't beat it except for Essence Scatter, and you just pile cartouches on it.
I mean, maybe it's not the worst to just throw it in there. No forest.
He's going deep enough to go to Floodwaters. I mean, why not?
Just literally throw it in there and say, if I get the Pyramid of the Pantheon, I'm playing my 6/7 Hexproof, I'm going to load it up with cartouches, that's game.
I wouldn't recommend it, but it would be fun to watch.
All right, so he's got a pretty uneventful hand, lots of land, and Reed's hand looks very pure. Got a 2-drop, a 3-drop, a Cycler, the pull.
There are some pro players that would mulligan Paul's hand, but knowing Paul, he's not one of them. You'd have to pry it from his cold, dead hands.
Yeah, I've been teaming with Paul for 6 years. Paul does not mulligan unless he has to.
Yeah, 6 lands and a 2-drop? He goes, what? I would choose to have that hand. It looks like it's going to play out pretty nicely.
Yeah, the Painted Bluffs was actually great for Reed here.
Awesome, yeah. Lands are always good draws when you have Pull from Tomorrow in your hand, and it's going to give him access to Electrify. Very, very good draw.
Yeah, it's just rough. 10 creatures. Reed might have 10 removal spells.
That is a very good draw. One of Reed's best draws? Hard to say. Now, if he waits, the obvious bonus to waiting is that Paul could put a cartouche on his creature, and the downside is the supernatural stamina would put it right back into play. In general, I do like waiting, just because...
Well, against a 6 cartouche deck, for sure.
There's so many more cartouches. It's not likely that Paul's going to play in that way. But maybe if his hand is just all lands and cartouches and he thinks, like, I got to get something going. I can't just leave cards in my hand until I lose. I got to at least try to use them to win and beat my opponent's bad hands. Man,
this is brutal. He has more removal than he has relevant creatures, plus Pull from Tomorrow and Horror of the Broken Lands. It's just... And he's the writings on the wall.
Yeah. Any slow-on-slow matchup, Pull from Tomorrow is going to be one of the best cards.
Yeah, I can't see a sequence to get Paul out of this, really. I mean, Reed's going to have to just draw like 7 lands in a row, which we've seen happen a couple times. So it's possible. Not likely, but possible.
Yeah, you'd think like if Paul had blue mana, he could just draw the Trial and turn, just really get back in the game. But he's going to have to draw blue and draw the Trial. I love this play by Reed, casting Horror of the Broken Lands.
Yeah, so we're going to cycle this and draw more lands. That's the other issue when you play 16 land and like all these cycling cards in this format, you flood a lot too. Because so many of your cards are just replaced, so your deck is a lot smaller, so you're effectively playing 16 land out of like 34 cards. Especially when they're cards that don't have a lot of value on the non-cycling side, like Floodwaters.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why that ended up into Paul's deck, to be honest.
I mean, I see the logic. If he got in a spot like last game, he can bounce the cartouche off a guy. get through attack with his guys, but
he boarded it in against me because he also boarded in Warfire Javelinier, so it made sense to have instants and sorceries with cycling. And if he boarded in Warfire Javelinier, then that also makes sense. But just in general, it's not a card you want to cast against Reed's deck. And yeah, Drakehaven, I would say, is an above average draw.
Yeah, he's going to get in for 6 by cycling in combat.
In the early parts of the game, it sort of seemed like Reed was playing around stuff, but now he's not playing around stuff. It's just blood in the water. He's just going for the throat.
Well, if he was really going for the throat, he would have sent that Doom Beetle in there and got in that 1 point.
Honestly, it might have been the best play to just get the Doom Beetle in there.
Get that Doom Beetle in there, because it ain't blocking right now either, so you might as well put him to 7, but no. This one is, ugh. He's exile this guy, cycle the Sweltering Suns, doesn't have enough for both.
Poor Paul Rietzl, honestly. Nobody deserves this kind of a beating.
Yeah, you can just exile and attack for 7. See, look, if he exiles, he attacks for 7. That Doom Beetle hit. He gave him a turn. He gave him a turn.
Yeah, weird that he gave him a turn.
Oh man, look at this. He gets the pull. Paul should just scoop for we've had enough. We tap out.
Wow, I regret to inform everyone that my stint into commentary was so short, but Reed really had his way with him.
Look at all those trophies behind you. You have the newest one up?
No, those are over there on the other side of the room. But
do you have the only one from yesterday, or I guess Sunday now? No,
it's a trophy. It's a solid trophy. It's hard to put up on the wall. We'll get something up there soon, though. Don't worry.
All right, nice. Well, I hope that you get to play your last match. It's me versus Huey, a man I rarely beat. I think, for the first time in my life at the Pro Tour recently. I was like 0-9 or something. He beat me 3 times in one Grand Prix, all on the same day.
Believe it or not, that's a story I've heard before.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible because I've never heard that happening, to lose to one guy 3 times in a solo Grand. I think my record in that Grand Prix was 12-3. 12 and Huey is what we call it.
You were X and Huey, yeah.
Yeah, he beat me. I was 8-0 day 1, 2-1 in the first pod, 2-1 in the second pod. He beat me in both, and then he beat me in the top 4. I wish it had lined up where we could have met in the finals at least, so.
I'm lucky that I don't get paired against him at the Grand Prix that often. It's only in the testing house where I get beaten repeatedly.
No, he's quietly just the best. He smashes me every time. So hopefully I can get that monkey off my back. Like I said, I did beat him the last time we played in the Pro Tour. We got paired against each other, and I was so like disappointed. But it was constructed, and my draw was great. I just went 1 drop, 2 drop, 3, just zombied him right out. So hopefully I can beat him now, and it can force the final match between you and Matt.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to watch.
All right, guys, stay tuned. We get to watch me climb a mountain and try to defeat Huey.